interesting topic that we're going to discuss, which I think many of you feel for as consumers, as also part of the retail community, and that's to do with strong consumer engagement programs. So whether you're talking about consumer identification, prepaid cards, gift cards, loyalty cards, the question that we're going to be debating with our panel is whether it's relevant, whether it's something that has scalability in terms of revenue, and whether, more importantly, it's something that is creating the kind of consumer engagement and consumer loyalty that we may be striving for as brands. Before anything else, we're going to have a quick presentation to line out really the look and feel of this conversation and what the important points are. And for that, may I invite on stage Shankar Balan, President of the Core Business at Quicksilver. Shankar.
Yeah. Mithali, thank you. And welcome, everyone. I know it's after lunch, but it would be nice if we could spend just a few minutes on this little presentation before we invite our distinguished panelists upstairs. So we're talking about amplifying consumer loyalty with prepaid gifting, gift cards, which are some of the instruments and tools that we can use in the world of consumer loyalty. Loyalty is actually very rare. If you find it, keep it. I mean, it's a platitude maybe, but I think it's something which we would do well to remember. There's the old boring way of looking at consumer loyalty, and I think it's boring, but yet it's important because acquiring consumers at any cost, I think many of our colleagues over here from the retail industry will bear me out in this. Driving intention, propensity to purchase, recency, frequency, get consumers to come back and transact more and more, and so on. Points burn, drive premium purchases, and a whole lot of stuff. It's a lot of blah, actually. But at the same time, it is important because somebody's got to do the grunt work. The fact is that consumers have changed in today's world. They're cash-rich and they're time-strapped. They are digitally distracted. If you look at anyone around you, pretty much the chances are that you'll find them fiddling around with the phone or with the tablet. And that's life. I mean, if you go to the retail store or if you go walking on the high street, if you go to a mall, you will find people not looking where they're going, but they're looking at their phones, which is not wrong. I mean, that's today's world. We've got to live in it, we've got to fix it, we've got to find a way around it. Consumers demand the here and now. They want everything instantly. I think all of us are guilty of that to some extent. Digital distraction, instant gratification. Social recognition is something which people may not admit to, but they want, for sure, all the same. And consumers actually expect brands to fit in with them and show them that they love them. Otherwise, they simply won't engage. So when you go to this, you say loyalty, what's that? In today's world, it is actually a fact, and I think a lot of my friends in the retail industry will bear me out when I say this. Because people are deal-mongering today. They are brand promiscuous by nature. They will go wherever the discount leads them. That's the world we live in at this moment in time. Increased distribution, increased availability, competition. But consumers are actually, deep down, no longer motivated only by discounts. They're very interested in investing in experiences, and I think, based on the little discussion we had prior to getting on this panel today, I think we are all pretty much agreed that consumers need to be engaged with, and they're willing to probably look at experiential things rather than just transactional. And consumers actually prefer a sustained engagement rather than a transactional relationship. It's true that consumers don't like too many rules, so let's make things a little simpler for them. So I would suggest that the new to-do list for brands would be get away from transactional, move to emotional connect, and I think one of my colleagues on the panel will bear me out on this, Shivajit. Move to the emotional, connect with your consumer. Get into personal, get into social, because these are things that drive people. We are humans after all. It's not only about discounts. Show the love to the consumer. The brand has to show the love to the consumer and shift away from mass communication to personalized communication. Michael, you might probably bear me out on that. When you said that communication that you've received from loyalty programs is no longer really personal, it is merely assumed to be personal. One size doesn't fit all, as in the clothing or the shoe industry. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to loyalty. I want to show you a couple of videos which I hope will help to illustrate what I'm trying to say. When we're talking about consumers, we're talking about engagement, we're talking about showing them the love and to feel good. There's a very nice campaign by Topshop an Instagram social catwalk where people who Instagrammed their photographs got an opportunity to actually be in the shop window. It's a very quick video, so please bear with me. I think you'll find it interesting. And there's another one, which is Dove, which is a very familiar cosmetics slash soap and otherwise a brand of cosmetics personal care. These videos are illustrative of only one thing, how the brand is engaged with the consumer.
It was my choice. And now I will question few weeks, maybe month.
Led to two doorways. It was a bit confronting, actually, to be honest, to choose. I went through the
漂亮对我的概念来，
Eu me arrependi da escolha porque era diferente.
Am I choosing because, or am I choosing because that's what I really believe?
But my mum just pulled me over to the beauty school door.
It was a great word.
Basically, Dove proved something to the ladies in that video. Choose beautiful, they said. Now, will anyone ever forget that message? Will anyone ever forget Dove? Why would you think of yourself as average when you can think of yourself as beautiful? I mean, it doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter how you behave. You think of yourself as beautiful, everybody else will automatically. Now, that, in my opinion, is fantastic consumer engagement, gentlemen and ladies. I think that these brands have kind of cracked it when it comes to letting consumers remember them favorably. Now, I just touch upon this little topic about gift cards, which is the business I'm in. We run a little company called Quicksilver, and we look after pretty much all the retailers and e-tailers gift cards in this country, as well as the Middle East. Now, the point I'm making is very simple. When a consumer is willing to prepay and buy into your brand, he or she is actually manifesting a very, very extreme form of loyalty. Because when they buy a gift card, they are gifting that experience to somebody else. And it's only when you like something that you will bother to buy it, number one, by prepaying. Number two, it's only when you like something that you will actually endorse it by gifting it to someone else. So this is one tool amongst many. But the underlying message very clearly is always going to be about consumer engagement and not merely transactional. You need to show the love. Like it or not, that's our business. Unleash advocacy, consumer advocacy. Make a consumer an advocate of your brand. Gifting equals prepay, equals advocating the product and the service. Putting money on the table, your reputation is on the table when you gift something. It's only when you like something that you will do that. It's showing the love. Now, just a little snippet about Quicksilver. We are the pioneers in this whole gift card space. We are proud to tell you that we power pretty much everyone in the retail industry's gift card programs. And gift cards, by their very nature, straddle the crossroads between social and commercial. Social, gifting is a social activity. It's also, it involves money and prepaying, hence it is commercial. Gift cards, therefore, are at the crossroads. And this is a new innovative application that we've just launched, which enables you to get personal social on your mobile using Woohoo. Inspire loyalty instantly, go mobile, go social, go gifting, go woohoo. It's on Android right now, iOS to follow shortly. Some of the brands that we power, but at the end of the day, it's a world of engagement. Go mobile, go social, create value by engaging with your consumer. Thanks very much for your time.
Grab a seat because we're going to start our longer, more detailed conversation. Let me invite on stage our other panelists as well. I'm just going to be walking around to facilitate the conversation and maybe get the audience going as well. We've also got Manisha Chopra, founder of CSOL. Manisha, have a seat, please. Michael Leander, who's an award-winning speaker. He's a judge for Digital Direct and Loyalty Marketing Awards. He's also been on many consulting agencies and brands. Mohit Dhanjal, who's the director of retail for Raymond. Vikas Chaudhary of IMEI, who will have a lot of statistics and details and numbers to add to this conversation. And Shubhadeep Banerjee, Head of Consumer Engagement at ITC, who is the outlier here because they don't really play the loyalty card game, but I'm sure he'll have a lot of interesting insight here. Please, have a seat, all of you. So, dipstick surveys are often irrelevant, but sometimes interesting. Show of hands, how many people here own loyalty cards, have ever received a gift card, used one? We're working with 40% of the room. How many own multiple loyalty cards? Okay, about the same number. So that's not a bad starting point from. Let me start with you, Mohit, because you had an interesting point to raise earlier in terms of revenue scalability here. Now, Raymond works mostly with the franchise model, as we discussed, but as you pointed out, you do get strong traction from this loyalty purchase corridor, both in terms of repeat sales and the kind of revenue model you've seen from there. Tell us about that.
Thank you. You know, Raymond is a 90-year-old brand. In fact, we celebrated our 90 years on 10th of this month. And we do most of our retail business through franchise stores. So therefore, if you ask me, loyalty is, I mean, it flows seamlessly between franchise company. I mean, a customer is not bothered whether this store is managed by the company or by a franchisee. So therefore, it's something that how we manage back end. But coming to what I was trying to say is, Raymond is an occasion-led brand, and therefore what we have seen is that loyalty for us actually has flowed generations. So it's typically a father who takes his son or takes his, let's say, daughter who's going to get married to a Raymond store, and that's their first induction into the Raymond store. And we've seen this happen over a period of time. What we have noticed is that when we rolled out the, let's say, the Premier Club Circle, some years ago, we realized that about 40% of our transaction actually happens through customers who have shopped with us before. Truth be told, I don't really know too much about this 40% who these people are. But what I do know is that that 7% of my total universe who have come and shop actually shop 3 times more. So these customers come back, and not only come back, they actually shop more. So therefore, it's a very interesting statistics.
Michael, let's stoke the fire a bit in this conversation and talk a little bit about this whole consumer loyalty setup from 2 sides, really. One, where the criticism of the consumer is that the consumer is fickle and the consumer is not loyal enough, while the counterpoint or counter-agreement to that is that the loyalty system is not inspiring enough and doesn't give enough to a consumer or a customer in order to want to come back.
I couldn't hear but half of what you said, so I'm guessing a little bit now. But I think you mentioned that the loyalty experience isn't good enough. And as was already said, it's very discount deal driven, and I think that's good sometimes, but not all the time. I think there needs to be more. First of all, there needs to be the service experience delivered consistently. Raymond, I happen to know the company quite well. I'm not wearing your clothes today, I am sorry. But that's what you experience in a Raymond store. You get what you came for. But a lot of other retailers actually have a problem even at that level. Not enough education of the staff, not enough product knowledge, etc., etc. So that's on the very basic level, but I think we need to add a number of other experiences, like we saw in the video here as well, the first video that we saw. That was something special, probably for a specific segment of customers. So if we can identify customers, and if we start using the data that we are acquiring consistently, then we should be able to design some greater experiences, and so it's not just about points and discounts and so on. Did that answer the question?
In part it did, but let me ask Manisha for more details here. You're in a unique position because you're B2B and B2C. Yeah. Tell us how your discount or your loyalty model works, and the point actually being, is it just about discounts, or is there something else attached to the entire loyalty concept for you?
All right. I would say if I introduce CSOL, it's a 3-year-old baby. I call it as my third child. We have a presence in both B2B, which is salons and spas, and now we have spread our wings into the online and retail stores as well. So how we really perceive, because CSOL came with a difference to the country, and it was not just the experience that we created for the client, it's also the uniqueness of the products. And globally going green, was a thing which started like, I'm an Australian, so being in Australia, we knew this started like almost more than a decade ago, but India was still lacking behind. So creating that awareness and education for the salon partners, for the therapists there, because at the end of the day, they are the one who are sharing that experience. They are the one who are sort of, creating that word out there to the consumer that how CSOL is different, why CSOL, why organic is important. So apart from the loyalty programs, that creating that service experience, like even if we have the online stores or even the retail, we have this skin analysis system set out there where a consumer can come and try, analyze their skins, find out what products work for them, and we provide them some sort of discount coupons to actually go and experience that service at the salon nearest to their, to their location. So that way we are trying to bind the two different sectors with each other, where creating an experience with the loyalty so that they stick back to the brand. Because at the end of the day, it's very important to see what's in there for the consumer rather than seeing for yourself.
Okay.
So that's how we perceive it different.
Sure.
Yeah.
Vikas, let me draw you in before I get to Shubhadeep over here. You have more concrete data to share in terms of your experience with partnership with companies like Raymond, etc. What do you see as particularly the revenue scalability of this loyalty or gift card side of the business?
So I think we're talking about 3 or 4 different concepts here that all are trying to converge upon building consumer engagement. So I actually think that deals, discounts, gift cards, loyalty cards are actually various different means to the same end, right? So all the retailer is actually trying to do, or the service provider is trying to do, is engage the customer better, is to get to know the customer better. And I fundamentally believe that loyalty is an excuse that you offer to your consumer in order to get more data about your consumer, and then to be able to establish a credible channel of communication back to the consumer. So it's almost like you're giving something back to get something in return from them. And that return is not necessarily buying their 100% loyalty. I actually think it is a misnomer to think that anybody or any consumer is 100% loyal to any brand at any point in time. I think consumption of a product or service is led by the experience, is led by the availability, and as determined by several other factors like that. And loyalty just gives you a nudge in that direction. However, if you talk to consumers, if you talk, we do a lot of research, and if I give you numbers out there, if you talk to consumers, more than 70% of consumers will say that our choice is driven by some sort of a deal or a discount or a loyalty card, right? Let me actually ask people in this room, people who all put up their hands and said, we have loyalty cards. How many of you have actually ever taken the points on your loyalty card and had a pleasant redemption experience? Have you got something great and free for your loyalty points? Can I have hands up? Right. So we have 7 out of 70 people, right? Exactly. So I think that answers your question to some extent, where the consumer is expecting a lot more out of loyalty, is expecting a lot of surprise, delight, payback, and a great redemption experience, which not necessarily all categories can go out and offer you. You know, today if I'm a brand that is not very frequent, or if I'm a customer that's not very frequent at a brand, let me take an example. We run a lot of hotel loyalty programs, right? Sure. If you're not a platinum customer, if you're not spending 30, 40 nights a year at that hotel brand, you're not going to earn enough to redeem it for 1 or 2 nights of vacation. You're probably going for work, but you redeem it for vacation, right? That's the reality of loyalty. You look at airlines, you look at hotels, or all of these things. But the consumer is expecting to be treated like a royal when they walk in through the door. So loyalty today has gone much beyond transactions. It's basically become about recognition and engagement. So loyalty as we know it is dead. It's not about issuing you a card. It's not about issuing you points. It's not about giving you rewards, right? It's actually just recognizing you as a customer. It's about understanding your preferences, and it's about personalizing your experience.
Yeah, I think you raise an important point about opacity of many of these loyalty programs as well, which we'll discuss in more detail. But Shubhadeep, you guys are the outliers here, because you neither have any such model, and from our conversation, it doesn't seem like you're heading towards one. But do you feel the lack of it?
True. Outlier, yes, but the principles that I've heard everybody talk about and Shankar touch upon in his presentation, that loyalty is about engagement. As soon as you hear the word loyalty, I think there are 2 words that comes to mind. One is change, and the other one is its opposite, which is constancy. Now, change is evident in the country because you have lots of money, you're being bombarded with information, you have lots of choices being given to you, you have education adding to it. So on top of it, we as brand owners have also become extremely restless, and it's been a barrage of sub-brands and variants and new packaging and new products and line extensions that we've seen over the last few years. So when change is inevitable, and you are trying to foster that entire thing of the explorer India, so-called, there is a counter trend that's happening. Excess of all of this is leading people to go back to the normal, go back to simplicity, go back to the roots. So you have also brands working on the same platform. Having said that, there are categories and brands which are amenable to have higher loyalty levels. So if I may ask the audience here, a commodity category that we operate in is a flour brand. So it's Ashirwad. I hope few of you would have heard about it. It's an atta brand which sells in the country and is the largest atta brand in the country. What is your expectation? Do you think loyalty would be very high in a category which is around 80% odd, still as loose and wheat? Do you think loyalty would exist in a category like that? How many thinks yes? Can I please see a show of hands? Almost none. Almost none thinks that in a commoditized category can you have loyalty. Now you have a brand here which started off, and I'll touch upon what Shankar was talking about, which started off on an emotional plank. We had just nothing else. It was a white powder, it's another atta. You're sourcing it from Madhya Pradesh and Punjab, and you're selling that in a packaged form. So in order to build that loyalty, all that was required was an emotional connect with the consumer. We have heard everybody talk here about emotions. We have heard people talk about engagement. This emotional connect is not just generated through a TV commercial that you play 4 or 5 times in the year. Every touch point that you get, every time you get to interact with the consumer, whether it's a door-to-door interaction, whether you're meeting him or her on a digital platform or wherever, it is this engagement which should rekindle that emotion alive. It's only then that the loyalty builds. It's only then you have not 10% consumer accounting for 30% of your revenue. You want more of that 10 happening and them contributing to a larger chunk because they are in your kitty.
Sure.
So this is just an example. As we proceed in the discussion, I think we'll have more such coming from the FMCG part of the business.
Shankar, of course, the point is not just to critique the model, but to find what works. On this point, specifically about opacity, because you deal with such a gamut of organizations, how do you see people doing it differently, and what works really in some of these consumer loyalty and reward coupon models?
I'm a bit of a debunker, though I like what Shivajit said, and I'm loyal to Ashirwad, by the way. I like the atta. I buy it, my house, everybody likes it, so why not? There is no concept of not being loyal to any particular category. It could be a biscuit, it could be drinking chocolate Cadbury's, it could be Apple phones, it doesn't matter. Point is, like everybody in the panel has been, perhaps vociferously saying, it's more about transaction, more than transaction, it is about engagement. The point is, I will hazard a statement which may make me unpopular here, forgive me guys, but the fact is that most brands today, irrespective of the category in which they operate, are transactional. Their loyalty programs are transactional by nature. Now if I spend in Mohit's store 20,000 bucks buying a couple of suits, or maybe one suit, because that's pretty much the average price that I would expect to spend, maybe a little more. I would much prefer, instead of him giving me 3 points for every 100 rupees that I have spent, I would be much happier if he'd taken the time to find out a bit about me and give me an invitation to one of your famous polo matches or an opportunity to come and watch Gautam do donuts in his fancy car. You know? Now that is experiential, that is engaging, that is something which as a consumer I would love. If you care to know a little about me. A couple of the programs that I have experienced which are very, very, very good quality, and I think Michael, we discussed this in the pre-panel discussion. Emirates. Asks me whether I'm interested in certain things. I'm interested in horse racing. I'm interested in golf. I get invitations. By virtue of having reached a certain status, I do get certain invitations to certain events which I find of value, more than the points.
Michael, you want to come in on that?
We only have, is this working?
I'm wired, I don't know about you.
We have a lot of microphones up here. It's awesome to be up here. We only have 48 minutes, so I'll try to keep it short. Let's define what loyalty is first. And I think in India, if I can be blunt, we have an issue because it's a hit-and-run retail society. Think about how people are pushing sales inside stores. It happens to Indians as well as foreigners. They won't let you go if you don't buy. They won't let you browse by yourself. You tell a guy, can I just look at this myself? He says, yes. And then he goes away for about 4 seconds, then he comes back and he's standing and he's actually blowing you in the ear, waiting for you to. So, again, I want to go back to that point because that's where the magic happens. That's where you create the experience. And for you, it's the spas and such places. How they sell, introduce, apply your product will matter for the loyalty that, if you will, that you earn or the preference that you earn. So I think we need to understand first what is actually a loyal customer. And I disagree with what was said before, because it's not about consumption. Somebody can be very, very happy about your brand, let's say Raymond, although that person only makes a major purchase every 2 years, is still a very loyal customer if Raymond is the only place that this person shops suits, for example. So the share wallet aspect that was briefly mentioned earlier, I think is incredibly important to get into the equation. And then decide, how do you want to reward customers? Do you want to do it based on consumption? Or do you want to do it based on what you experience are your most loyal customers, those that will actually become your advocates? I think that's the first point. When you look at those experiences, so I've been part of a lot of stuff that I won't bore you with right now, but when you look at the experience, you need to design them in such a way that you can reach all of the segments that you want to please, so to speak. Even if the, so to speak, transactional yearly value of a given consumer is not, it doesn't merit the experiences. You still need to have experiences for those folks, because otherwise they'll feel left out. If they are not appreciated, as was mentioned before, their loyalty is going to slip. Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
Or two more things? The second thing is, all of these data that you're acquiring, whether you're using one or the other platform to do it, you got to start using this information. It's pointless otherwise, in my opinion. And India has a problem with this, like many other countries, just collecting data. You ask somebody, why are you collecting all these data, Shoppers Stop or Lacoste or Benetton? And nobody knows. The way loyalty members are acquired, let's say in Benetton, I hope you're here, is a matter of getting a phone number from a customer, probably because you're incentivizing the salespeople. And what happens next? Well, a lot of nice SMSs all the time coming into your phone about one offer or the other because you're a member of a club, right? So how you onboard people is incredibly important. In your case, I think I need to have a lot of information about what exactly the products are, why they're good, why they're better than others, how I can find instructions on how to apply it myself if I don't want to go to a spa, etc., etc. It starts there. You need to plant a seed in the mind box of the consumer. You need to set expectations because that's what gets them to the next stage. Just onboarding them with a card. You don't know how many hotel cards I'm a member of. It's crazy. Just because I get a card doesn't mean I have any preference, let alone loyalty. It doesn't come until I start getting this consistent experience, which doesn't have to be super premium. It just has to be quality, and quality, as you know, is pretty much just delivering what you promised. So IRF promised you a great conference, you're going to get a great conference. Therefore, that was quality, and the loyalty then comes next, which is you returning next year. I'll stop there. I see I spent like 2 minutes and 4 seconds.
Nobody's counting but you. Mohit, you made the point earlier when we were speaking about the online-offline thing and the fact that you guys are actually not present online, especially with reference to this loyalty program. And since morning, there's a lot of punches that's been traded about the brick and mortar versus the online. Do you think that makes any difference in the loyalty setup, whether you have an online presence or not?
You know, I think it's all about the various points that you can be in touch with, or let's say reach out to a consumer in his journey cycle. So, you know, today consumers are actually omni-channel shoppers. So, I mean, a consumer who shops at brick and mortars or shops at high streets or malls also shops online. Yeah, and what's happening today is obviously there is a huge effort on recruiting consumers online, so there's a huge amount of buzz and you are driving traffic, so you will see that. So as a brand, if I, let's say, want to reach out to my consumer, I need to understand that consumer. And if I know where he shops, how he shops, what he shops and how often he shops, I therefore understand him better. So if he's if he can, let's say, for example, you know, a consumer who wants, let's say, a fabulous suit, he walks into my store, but later would like to, you know, follow up on the status of that suit by an online media, I think that is where I should be. So traditionally, I've been a very brick and mortar organization, and we have seen this changing shift in consumer preferences. So I think it's just a matter of time that we need to be there, especially if you need to follow the consumer and understand him better.
Okay, I'm going to pause our conversation and get the audience in now before we go back to our own track. If you have a question, raise your hands. I'll try and get a mic across to you so we can steer the conversation according to the kind of questions that you guys may have as well. Any questions? Everybody agrees with everything? You have a question?
In what sense?
Do
20% of your customers give you 80% of your...
I think the 80-20 principle applies in various different facets of business. It's not necessary in every business and in every category you have 80% of your business coming from 20% of your customers. But it could be 80% of your profits coming from 20% of your customers. It could be 80% of your insights coming from 20% of your customers. It could be 80% of your early learnings in terms of adopters coming from 20% of your customers when you put a new product out. So I do think there is a lot of value in the 80-20 rule in the new context of how consumer insight is essentially gained as you go forward. And I think that is actually a fundamental, if you can adopt, if you can identify those 20% of your customers, which goes beyond simply ranking your top 10 customers or something as simple as that by value, then there's a lot to gain. Because the market is today so evolutionary, right? We keep talking about this whole omni-channel, and we talk about digital giving you or e-commerce giving you deals and discounts and coupons, and everybody moving there for a period in time. All of this is transient, right? None of this is permanent. Today, one person is giving you an offer and you go there. Tomorrow, another person is giving you an offer and you go there. But there is some underlying experience that keeps building up. There is a brand positioning. There is a product. There is an affinity, and that builds loyalty over a period of time. And you keep doing that by learning, right? So you put something out, you learn, and then you go out and do that again. And that continuously uses the 80-20 rule. It's test and learn and test and learn, and keep adapting to the evolutionary consumer and the market.
I'd like to add something to what Vikas said. So while you have your radar on the 20-80 combo, you also should be aware of the 30-50 principle. So what this 30-50 principle is that 30% of your bottom customers are 50% of your profit destroyers. In the guise of actually recruiting and retaining and getting these loyal consumers in, so a lot of times you actually put out undifferentiated run-of-the-mill communication, and you spend a lot of money chasing these people, and they don't really give you that money back. So you actually destroy value. So while you look at 20-80, it's also important to look at the 30-50.
Shubhadeep, you agree your 5 rupee biscuit consumers are eating up into 50% of your top line or bottom line?
As in, we don't have exactly a 20-80 coming up. Considering our price points and the categories that we operate, we roughly have around 10 to 15% loyalists, accounting for around 35, 37, 40% of the total business coming from them. The remaining chunk comes from the rest. But agreeing to what he was talking about is that whenever we launch a new brand, there are always these early adopters. The 80% of the learning actually comes from these guys who are these early adopters. They don't even form 20% of the consumer set. They form a smaller chunk than that. While it is important to understand these guys, it's also equally important to know what he was talking about was the 30-50 principle. Is that last 20% who have never even touched you, known you, seen you there, but not even touched you. So it's important to, and the largest chunk of insights that we're talking about actually comes both from the haters and the loyalists. So, and that both pieces of information are equally important for taking the business forward.
Manisha, because you guys are a nascent business, as you pointed out, at this point, the entire loyalty reward system, do you feel it's hugely skewed towards deep discounts, and that really is the big challenge, getting out of this deep discount mode?
So if we talk about the deep discount mode, can you just get me a little more clear on like how
do you guys have to keep undercutting in terms of prices? Do you have to make it more lucrative for a customer who enters one of the spas and uses one of your products? Does a 500 rupee candle have to become a 250 candle in order to be purchased and used?
There are expectations like that, definitely, I won't deny, because especially when we are dealing with the salon owners and spa owners, so they would always look forward for the better deals. So they would always sort of, throw options like we have been getting such sort of deals from the other brands and things like that. So, but where we stand strong is the quality of the product and, being organic, as I say, at CSOL we proudly say being organic means free from all sort of harmful chemicals. So keeping our, strengths much more stronger, we sort of deny those sort of, we take back our step when we'd been asked for offering discounts. Rather than offering discounts, we try to work more on, creating a better experience for the consumers as well, who are actually coming in, visiting these salons and spas. So maybe, instead of doing, if they're buying a product from CSOL from a certain salon, we probably give them a sample of another product for them to experience rather than offering them discounts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shankar, someone from Wipro was pointing out in an earlier conversation, now the entire landscape has changed with your personal phone. So you could enter a mall and an SMS or something else could pop up saying, you're near this store and guess what, there's a 20% discount going. On that point you were making about a step-up experience, how do you make it differential? Because now there really is no difference between a loyal customer and just a regular customer walking into the mall.
I think Mohit made that thing about, previews.
Yeah.
That was one of the big deals with loyalty earlier. I'll just speak a little out of turn. My wife actually currently engaged in a project which is very interesting, which is the use of beacons in retail stores to drive interesting and relevant offers to the consumer. This argues that the retail store or the company already has the information pertaining to the consumer and they've already analyzed it, which means they will drive actually relevant communication to them. There isn't anything like that right now in India. However, there is a sort of a mass communication which I think I will echo most of our colleagues' points of view. There's mass communication that's going on which is not tailored to your specific needs. What on earth, for example, would interest somebody who's not a fashion buyer? If you go and send communication about fashion to them, it's not going to interest them. For example, somebody who's not a frequent hotel user may not really be interested in that weekend deal that they throw at that particular consumer. So it's about analysis and effective use of analysis. And I don't think anybody in the country today is doing it, and I will take a name if it comes to that. There are some, okay, I won't take a name. There's a very powerful, no I won't, I don't think so, because they're friends of mine and I don't want to harm them. There's a very powerful loyalty program in retail today, one of the best known ones in the market. I was also part of one, I created one between the year 2010, at that point in time we started one. We acquired a lot of consumers, but none of those consumers stayed engaged. To go back to what Manisha said, I think some of the points she made was good. She stands up for her product and doesn't discount it unnecessarily. Yeah. Discount is merely, shall we say, it's a sop to get a consumer to come and experience. The moment they experience, if you're confident enough, like the Body Shop, if you're confident enough of a product, you will find advocates in those consumers. It's about no animal testing and organic and stuff like that.
Let me just
so
give you a few
because I just want to come to you on this point of opacity. That's one. And the second point that I've observed with a lot of these loyalty programs is that they have a 1-year shelf life. Apparently, loyalty is equal to 12 months and no longer than that. Why?
So I actually think I completely agree with you. I think loyalty as we know it is dead. I think 1 year is too long. Where you will be 1 year from today, what brand you will be consuming, what mood your wife will be in. You have no clue, right? You don't know what's going
in that order, or you want to reverse the order?
Whichever way you look at it. I actually think, having said that, I think it's a holistic experience, right? And I don't think you can buy anybody's loyalty for a certain period in time. I think you need consistent delivery, and you need to attack, you need to be able to attract the consumer through your product, through your pricing, through your channel. Let me give you a few examples, because there's a lot of discussion around deals and discounts are basically driving the consumer versus loyalty today. I don't necessarily agree. I think that is an acquisition strategy which is being played out because you're trying to build a market, you're trying to build change, right? The Indian consumer was not used to shopping online, giving his card online, or being able to buy a product. If somebody told you 5-7 years ago that you're going to buy a lot of apparel online without touching it and feeling it and knowing whether it actually fits you or not, most of you would say get out of the room, right? But that was not the case, because they're trying to change behavior. So let me give you a few quick examples on discounting versus loyalty, right? I'll take a global example to begin with, and then we'll bring it closer home. New York Times, they had a massive debate when media or newspapers around the world and print magazines around the world are basically shrinking. there's a statistic, some of you might know, India is the only country in the world where print is actually going up, right? Everything else is going, everyone else and everything else is going digital. So New York Times was battling this same question a few years ago when they started losing a little bit of their subscriber base, and they said, we need to go digital, what do we do? They experimented and they first started saying, you know, every piece of content that went online in the early days of digital went free or went freemium, right? Which was essentially you could either start reading all of it free because you wanted people to adopt the digital medium, or you said, I'll give you 5 articles free and then I'll start charging you for it. And then there was a price that was set. Most magazines went out and said, you know, my print costs you $10 a month, I'm going to start charging you $5 a month, right? Because it costs me lesser to give it to you digitally. New York Times took the opposite approach. They actually went in and said that if my content is really valuable, this is an opportunity now for people outside of the New York area and the tri-state area that I deliver to consume New York Times content, right? So we will actually do premium pricing. So they didn't go after discounting, they didn't go after freemium. They actually said we will go price this at $20 a month for anybody to have access to the complete New York Times experience online. And from that point to today, their subscription has gone up 10 times. Half their revenues today come from digital, right? Because they had a power of content behind them. Let me give you another example, right? A lot of us are frequent flyers, and frequent flyers are known to be crazy about their points, right? And we were joking earlier today, I've actually seen points on divorce agreements in some foreign countries, right? That's how big points are. But the reality is this, right? I was flying British Airways a few weeks ago, and the cabin director actually just came up to me and said, hello, Mr. Chaudhary, welcome back. We've not seen you for some time, and can we do something for you? It's obviously because I am a gold member with them, and I joked with him. I said, what you can do for me is to get me to London faster. So he said, sorry, I can't do that, but if there's anything else, please let me know. My point being that I always choose to fly them, and I'll pay a little bit of a premium to fly them for, just for the familiarity of the environment, for the greeting that I get, for the service that I enjoy. So these are sort of examples that you see where it's not deals, it's not discounts that really matter when you're looking at loyalty. It does create a relationship with your consumer. And we've seen that in many examples, many examples closer to home. We do this at the Taj hotels. It's a luxury property. We go in, we price higher. We tell people in a recessionary year, we've gone out and told people, if you double your spend with us this year, we'll give you triple the points. We won't charge you less. We won't give you a deal or a discount, but we'll give you triple your points, which is not quite worth as much as a discount. And in a recessionary year, we've had 60–70% conversions and people hitting those targets, right? So it's about how you communicate, it's about what you offer, it's about how personalized you get. Then these are not generic offers. You can't go out and tell people, we'll do this for everybody. You have to pick and choose your people, and you have to know what to communicate to whom.
Sure. Before I get back to the audience, another question to you, Shubhadeep, just to extend the point that was being made. In your experience, with the intrinsic loyalty that you perceive, you may not have statistical data for that. Does it also have the capability of encouraging uptrading in your business? Do you see that?
No, we have statistical data, but we don't have individual loyalty cards for consumers in the marketplace.
Yeah.
We have far more aggregated information about individuals. As far as upscaling is concerned or uptrading is concerned, it's generally, so whenever let me take an example. Let's go back to Ashirvad. So if Ashirvad had its popular regular offer and it launched a premium offer in its portfolio called Ashirvad Select.
By the way, at the end of this conversation, all of you are going to be converted into Ashirvad buyers. You can be sure of that.
So if Ashirvad launches a premium variant called Select, what we have observed is that around 70–75% of the volume in the initial 7–8 months of that line extension comes from the existing Ashirvad users. So it is uptrading. So your loyal consumers are a set of the loyal consumers are the consumers who are likely to uptrade. And they are the consumers who would keep that line extension alive. But just coming back to a certain set of points being raised, we were talking about acquisition. Sure. We were talking about giving discounts and acquiring consumers. Now, we also do huge amount of discounts. Throughout the year, there are enough number of FMCG brands which are on discounts in most stores. And now with e-com, we are bound to be there on with lots of offers. Our reads say that we don't retain more than 10 to 15% of the new acquisition. 85% of those that we get, we lose. We lose to another offer. We lose to another brand, or they would have come in from another brand, has gone back to that brand back again after the offer is over. Do you guys see a similar phenomena considering the outlay being larger in your industry? Do you see a similar thing, or do you see, no, this is far more happening in an FMCG world?
Yeah, I'll answer that because I've been a part of several loyalty programs in my time. Yes and no. In the initial years, yes, where there's going to be churn at the end of the first year or the second year, because you can't expect a consumer to come and transact again and again when they don't have an inherent value proposition that they like. However, over a period of, say, 2 years or 3 years, if the consumer has remained loyal or semi-loyal to your brand, there's every opportunity for that consumer to come back again and again, somewhat illustrating what Mohit said about generations, grandfather to father to son. And that's what's happening in the case of brands like Raymond's or Shoppers Stop, for that matter, or Lifestyle. These are habit forming. To take another small dig at Vikas, points are like a drug. They're habit forming. So most people out there today on credit cards are points junkies. But that's not true of the retail industry.
In fact, you're right. In fact, so for example, we have anything that we have differentiated in the portfolio. For example, Dark Fantasy Chocofills or Mad Angles from Bingo and stuff like that, which are relatively differentiated or are emotionally connected, are the brands where we try 90-95% of our times never to go on a discount, never to go on a promo, and then do not need, and the consumer acquisition is far more organic, far higher retention hence, and so on. So it brings back to the old point of the connect and the differentiation, sure, which are both equally important for a brand to exist.
Sure. Let me go back to the audience now and get some questions going. Sure, can we get him a mic, please? Right in front here.
Hello everyone, my name is Nishit Shah. Regarding loyalty, on one hand we have just heard that the customer who spends more, accordingly he is categorized and the best experience is given to him accordingly, or best deals are given to them. On the other hand, as mentioned by one of the panelists, sir also, that the beginner for a product, the beginner who purchases particular product, right, he is experiencing that product. After some time, when the product has got his own time value, to liquidate the particular stock, special discounts are given and it is being purchased by the other customers. But on the same hand, who is the beginner, who is giving the main 80% of learnings to the company back, he is paying entire money and having that experience. So it is not contradictory on, just a thought.
Which of you would like to take that?
Let me try and answer this. As a consumer, in fact, recently I had an experience, and this was with the online shopping experience. This was with Amazon. I had pre-booked a book. Yeah, so the book was, there was a discount offer. If you pre-book, you get a 10% off. I did that. And I was very happy to get this book 2 days later. A week later, I got a mail from Amazon saying that, we apologize because this book is now further discounted. And therefore, we are crediting your wallet with X amount. And it was, in terms of money, it was nothing, but I think it was the gesture. So I think it was fabulous, it was great. Would I go back to Amazon? Definitely I would. Yeah. Will I check what kind of discount they're going to have? No, I won't, because I know I'll get the best deal if that's what I'm looking for. Having said that, I think this is a very important, or let's say a critical path that retailers need to tend on. They need to be careful of what they discount and why they discount. So, for example, the point that you had made a little earlier. Every season we have an end of the season, we have an end of season sale, and any brick and mortar store worth its salt does go on discount sale, because that's a good way of liquidating unsold inventory. But you need to be very clear why you want to do that. So what we have seen is that during this period, we do get a lot of customers who don't stick to us or who have never shopped with us. So they're absolutely new and they come to us only during this time. And maybe they'll come back or they'll get reactivated a year later, but they do that. But I don't see that across categories. So when I go on discount, for example, my core, I never discount my core. So core for Raymond is fabric and is the tailoring that we provide. We don't discount that. Do I discount apparel when everybody else is? Yes, because I'm anyway not getting people in who come to buy that. So the only ones who come and buy my apparel during that phase is for a great deal that they get. So I need to be very careful about, what do I present, when do I present, and why do I present it.
That's a good point. Who's up next? Can we get a mic to him?
Yeah, hi, my name is Savino. I'm from Ugam Analytics. My question was around the loyalty, programs that are being run today. So, the brick and mortar retailers, certainly have an advantage. In one sense, when it comes to experiences that consumers have, they can dictate a lot. However, for customers just walking in and buying something, walking out, they have the disadvantage of not being able to track what they are up to. While that's the big advantage for the online guys, right? Now, in online, maybe there are some success stories like Amazon Prime, right? They've rapidly expanded their program, and I think over the last year, it's seen like 100% growth or something like that. So when it comes to maybe the Indian market, given that the consumer touch points with you as an online retailer are limited, and the similar touch points exist across any e-commerce company that the consumer may be interacting with, how would you recommend, or what would be your advice in terms of building a program or giving that kind of experience to the consumer, which can then drive that loyalty?
Michael, you want to take that?
If I understood the question right, is how you build a program. I think my take on this would be if you are boarding people primarily through point of sale, is to have a proper onboarding process where people qualify to actually enter the program first. But I think it's still very important. I'm going back to the same thing. I know it's so boring and so basic. They still need to have a great experience. And whatever you are promising them, if they become a more highly frequent customer, has to contain some great experiences. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think we have to be careful that we are not putting physical and online in each silo. I think retailers in India very, very soon will have the same scenario as we have in Europe and as they have in the US, where if I prefer to shop Raymond today online, I shop Raymond online. If I want to go down to the shop to see the actual, or feel the actual fabric tomorrow, then I go to the shop tomorrow, even if I'm in Bangalore and traffic is bad, right? So I think you have to beware that you need to create a seamless experience between the two. So that's one thing. The other thing that I want to mention is, if I was to create a program today, I would emphasize listening a lot. Because we all have bad customers. We all have bad customers, but we also have, all of us have customers who had a bad experience. And that's a real threat today. Because if somebody had a bad experience with Raymond and they go on Facebook or somewhere else and start talking about it, maybe the fabric was bad, they do a video. I've certainly wanted to do a video about TaylorMan at some point, if I'm being honest, because you pay X amount of money for what you think is a cheap suit, and then it turns out to be a really, really cheap suit. You know what I'm saying? But I won't, because they're improving all the time. But there will be a lot of customers who are bad-mouthing you out there. So I think it's very important to build into the program, how do we listen and respond to customers? There's a new business in India that I recently discovered that has some sort of software methodology for both listening, responding in real time, and collecting a lot of data, and I think there's even an offer engine there as well. I think that's the future, that you build these things. You don't look at all of these as compartments. They all have to come together in sort of a 360-degree environment. But what's most important is whatever you promise in that new program, you got to deliver it. And one thing you must deliver is to be relevant to me. Not all the Michael Leanders, there are not so many of those, but not all the Michaels or not all the whatever their name is. It has to be relevant to me, as you were mentioning before, about the interest, even if it's at a very simple level, where you ask things like, if it's Raymond, what's your size? What do you wear most? What do you spend most money on? Is it for business or leisure? Are you following me? So demystify that with individual customers and have a program that allows you to communicate with relevance and away from the one-size-fits-all that you mentioned in your brilliant initial presentation to a more customized, or if you will, personalized program. And don't get me wrong, I love India, I love Indians, and that's why I keep coming here. But still, you guys are collecting data and you're not using it. You have the technical power and the brain power to understand all the technicalities. Why can't you get it right in terms of the soft part, which is the communication? And especially with women. Women hate it when communication is irrelevant. Men like it if there are only a few pictures of good-looking women, then it's okay. But women don't even want that, or men. You get the point. So relevancy is really, really important, I think. And having a loyalty card or being in a loyalty program is a wonderful way to have a reason to collect data and to get started.
Maybe it's an extension of our hoarding mentality. It's genetic for us. We like to hoard. Please go ahead.
I just completely second and agree what you said, and I'll just paraphrase it to summarize it, which is if you leverage the fundamental difference between a brick and mortar store and that experience versus online and the data experience. Brick and mortar is all about, what they say in retail is location, 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 right? Online is all about personalization, personalization, personalization.
Okay, we have time for a final question before closing comments from our guests. Anyone who, at the back there, to the lady, can we get her a mic?
Just before that, he was talking about Prime membership in America.
Yeah.
In India, you buy and you pay 99 rupees and you'll get your stuff in 2 days. In America, you're going to pay $99 for an annual membership which guarantees you 2-day delivery. Free.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I've been married for 15 years. I have never got a loyalty card from my husband, nor have I given him one as well. So at the end of the day, I always see it is more a value proposition to a product. However, I could be a loyal customer to 10 different products in the same category. Yeah? So even if I have a loyalty program for one customer, I may be loyal to a coffee in the morning to one brand, but evening I may be going for a higher brand at a 5-star, and I'm more comfortable with that at that time zone. So when you say personalizing a brand online, is there a way of 2 or 3 different brands on a maybe premium, not on a commodity category, which could work with certain number of brands together, or is there a channel to get that thing to work where you can have a personalized card with different brands? Is there anything we could work on?
Can I just, before you do it, that's actually a wonderful input. I haven't seen this, maybe it exists in India, but programs where multiple brands gets together, and because they have the same type of customer segments, they have the same growth areas, they have the same value system, that's a wonderful way to approach this. And then obviously the personalization gets even better because you're accumulating information or knowledge from so many different sources throughout the whole year, which is sometimes a problem in some categories, right? In Northern Europe, this works really, really well. So even smaller retailers with, let's say, 4 to 6 stores can actually participate. And customers love it as well. So I don't know what your experience. You're going to say yes also, aren't you? Why can't we disagree?
You've actually you've actually talked about what 80% of my company's business model is. It's actually about the core consumer behavior, which is very true that you narrated, that you're not loyal to just one brand, and you cannot constantly be loyal to just one brand, and you will have preferences across brands, across experiences, across categories, right? And we have, it's actually technically called a coalition loyalty program. We run these in 20 different countries around the world. There's a brand in the UK called Nectar that you can actually look up, where what we do is we launch a common currency card, and several retailers participate in that common program. So if you when you're in the UK, if you have a Nectar card, you can walk into a Sainsbury's store and buy your groceries at Nectar points. You can go to a BP pump and buy your fuel and get Nectar points. You can go to Homebase and buy your linen and get Nectar points. You can go to Expedia and buy your travel and get Nectar points, which makes a lot more sense because you'll never buy so much fuel or so many flights necessarily to get you something meaningful as a customer. But if all of them can be pulled in, right? You buy one flight, you buy grocery once a month, you go buy fuel once a week, and you pool all of it together. At the end of the year, you will actually be able to collect enough to take your family out, on a holiday, to take, it equates to our averages. It equates to either 4 meals out or 3 trips to the cinema or a flight ticket, something like that. So you've called it out. There is a lot of this now happening globally in markets where there is healthy cooperation between various retailers.
Shankar, that's food for thought for Quicksilver.
Yeah,
you can bung all the names in and have a Quicksilver card.
We do have one. It's called Woohoo. It's there on your tables in the sense your little 10 card. That's a place which is taking it one step further. What's it called? Woohoo. Woohoo.
Yeah, like woohoo.
So this is about various kinds of gift cards which you can agglomerate into one mobile app. The world is going mobile. Everybody likes easy access at the fingertips. You aggregate a whole lot of gift cards on that mobile app, and whenever you go to those stores, you can spend that value. Additionally, there's a program in India which is a coalition program also, which is called Payback. We have an integration with Payback, so you can actually burn your Payback points in a Shoppers Stop store if you feel like it. The point is, it's all about consumer convenience. And I'll add one point to what Vikas said. See, there is a certain maturity that has to still happen in the Indian market. Brands need not and should not necessarily consider each other as enemies. They need to look at consolidating and working together. A fine example of it was a recent purchase I made of an iPhone. I was happy that it was fulfilled or delivered by Amazon, or fulfilled by Amazon and delivered by Chroma, both of whom are very good retailers in this country. So as a consumer, I have benefited from 2 of the best businesses, and I've got a product that I liked. So, brands and retailers need not necessarily be enemies. They can actually partner, and coalition is a good way to go.
Okay, on that note, could we have a warm round of applause for our panel here? I think lots of ideas that got changed around. Thank you very much for being with us.